and his family for over 20 years. It's rare to have somebody as your quarterback, as your assistant coach from the ground up, and as a coordinator, and then as a head coach of your team, and having all the success that we've had together. And he's a close friend. He's a family friend, and Doug is family to me. What can I say? So it's even harder to make the tough decision with somebody like that and that relationship. But it goes with the territory. And if you want to be a leader and make the tough decisions, sometimes you just have to. Sometimes you just have to look towards the future, try to evaluate things as possible, and a process as possible, and arrive at a decision that might make you very uncomfortable, but that you feel, honestly, my first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years. It's not based on, does someone deserve to hold their job or deserve to get fired? That's a different bar. Very few people probably after success deserve to lose their job. This is much more about the evaluation of whether the Eagles moving forward, our best option is to have a new coach. And that's really, really what it's about. It's not about, did Doug deserve to be let go? No, he did not deserve to be let go. That's not where I'm coming from, and that's not the bar in the evaluation process. I just want to reiterate, so grateful we all are in Philadelphia, Eagles fans around the world, to the success we've had over the last 5 years, winning Super Bowl 52, the camaraderie in the building that we've had, the collaboration in the building we've had. It's awfully nice as an owner to have the football operations and the football coaching and virtually, all the employees, and just a general culture of both success and collaboration and professionalism. And Doug has represented that every single day. And this was a difficult year on many, many levels, disappointing in its results. And I feel particularly bad that I was really hoping the Eagles could be that beacon of light during this difficult 2020. And I'm glad the NFL has been able to play all of our games. That's been a huge, huge plus. But I wanted the Eagles so badly to uplift our fans and not create more stress. And I think we've not accomplished that this year. And it's been a disappointing season. But going forward, again, you have to make tough decisions. And after talking to Doug again today, it just felt that the path forward was best for us to part ways. And I actually think it's better for both the organization and for Doug. And I really, really expect him to be a successful head coach in this league. And it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if he is on another NFL team later this week. And I'm certainly there for any owner that wants to talk about hiring Doug, because I will be, a major fan. That being said, sometimes you have to make the tough decisions on prognosticating the future. And that's what this was about. So happy to answer any questions. So I'm sorry for that long-winded statement. It wasn't planned. It's impromptu, but I feel really, it's a tough day for me personally, honestly.
Okay, we'll open it up to questions here. We'll get started with Zach Berman and then Paul Domowitch.
Hi, Jeffrey. As you evaluated this, how do you weigh the coaching versus personnel in determining the problem with the state of the team? And how do you evaluate the job Howie has done building the roster?
So I think basically my process is I evaluate every aspect of the franchise, every aspect, and evaluate the coaching, evaluate the personnel, evaluate the architecture of building the roster. And where I think we're at, and I'm just being kind of direct with all of you, and it's something it's hard to talk about during the season, but I think where we're at is we made a lot of decisions to try to accomplish bringing the first Lombardi Trophy to Philadelphia. And that started in 2016, but it continued into 2017. And certainly afterwards, if there were significant, I would say, strategic mistakes, they were made in the name of trying to hold the band together, kind of bring back the band together. There was a lot of short-term decision-making and allocation of resources that gave us probably a slightly better chance to go back to the Super Bowl in 2018 and 2019. Again, we were probably, without focusing on one person, an Alshon reception from getting back to the championship game the next season. And 2019 back in the playoffs, and our quarterback got hurt. So I think we gained from the short-term decision-making, but there was no stage where we weren't aware that a lot of those decisions and resource allocations and the lack of volume of draft picks wasn't eventually going to create a real trough, a real transition period. And I think that's what we're in. We're in a real transition period, and it's not unlike 2016. I mean, we've got to retrench and rededicate and allocate resources to what can make us the best possible team in the midterm and the long term, and hopefully compete in the short term, just because I think we can. But honestly, that's really where we're at. And I have real confidence that our football operations, led by Howie, can not only repeat the performance of 2016 until now, and once again create a dominant football team that can really maximize every aspects of its potential. And that's, I think that's the transition period we're in.
Paul, and then Dave Zangaro.
Yeah, Jeff, in an earlier statement you guys put out, you mentioned that you and Doug had talked about the collective vision, what the collective vision of the franchise would look like going forward. Obviously, it didn't coincide. How much of that had to do with the structure and makeup of his coaching staff?
Right. I would say the difference in vision, Damo, is much more about where we're at as a franchise. So, as I said, we're at that point. It's a transition point, and we've got to get younger. We've got to have a lot more volume of draft picks. We've got to accumulate as much talent as we possibly can that is going to work in the long run, with a focus on the midterm and the long term, and not on how to maximize 2021. And it's almost not fair to Doug, because his vision has to be, what can I do to fix this right away? And what coaches can I, have that can help me get to a smoother 2021? My vision is much more, how can we get back to the success we've had and what we're used to in the next, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so it's not a difference of opinion, it's a difference of where we're both at. And I really feel it's, it was in both of our interests to proceed on our own sort of paths that way.
Go ahead, Dave, and then Tim McManus.
Hi, Jeff. You spoke to the confidence you have in football operations led by Howie. Why do you feel confident in Howie, and do you feel like he's been held accountable for some of the mistakes he has made over the last few years?
So, Dave, I think that there's several reasons I have confidence in our football operations. First of all is the people that he surrounds himself with. We're only as good as the people we surround ourselves with. It's easy to talk about the quarterback and the head coach and the GM, but honestly, we're a product of those that surround us. And I see the people that Howie has attracted to our organization. I think the last two major GM searches have all been rating our organization for whether it's Joe Douglas or Andrew Berry. He then, we have about 5 people in our organization that right now I could project that will be general managers in this league. And he continually replenishes, whether it's a John Dorsey or Jeremiah Washburn, or, the list goes on. I don't want to leave anybody out, but we have a real strong nucleus with Andy Weidel, Ian Cunningham, Catherine Raish, Brandon Brown. One of the jobs of the general manager is to attract really good people and executives around him, because it's not meant for one person. There's mistakes, but what I have to look at is the process, and I have to look at the performance over time, but most importantly, I have to look at the process. And if we are not identifying the best players leading up to a selection in the draft, then that's a problem. If we are identifying the best players, but they get taken 2, 3, 4, 5 picks ahead of us, that's also part of the evaluation. That's part of understanding the process, understanding the details. And so I always have to make the tough decision of what are we getting it right? Where are we getting it wrong? Where are the decisions being made that may cause us to, once we didn't get the 3 players that we really wanted right there, they just got taken, what's caused that next selection that may not be been maximized? So, but in terms of every level of the football operation, I am really confident of where we're at, and I don't see any reason why we're not going to return to preeminence with more midterm and long-term decision making.
We'll go to Tim McManus and then Jeff McLean.
Jeffrey, how much of this decision is tied to the regression of Carson Wentz this year and his relationship with Doug? And will Wentz be on the roster in 2021?
Right. So this kind of decision has probably multiple variables, but it's not based on a quarterback or a particular position group. Certainly, you have to look at the regression of our offense. This is a league that scored the most points ever in 2020. It's a league that started to not call offensive holding penalties and offensive pass interference penalties, and yet we were obviously, I think, 31st in offense. So I look more at the whole picture. It's not about a particular player or a particular group, and and that's true for going forward. I mean, I think you all know me. I put a heavy emphasis on wanting to have an elite offense, and I feel like defense has variations throughout the year, but if you want to be a dominant team, you need to be a top offensive unit. And I didn't see, it's hard for me to project that at the moment, and therefore, but it's multiple variable. I don't want you to think that there's, one possible explanation for a change in head coach. It's way far more complex than that.
And the second part of that, Jeffrey, is will Wentz be back on the roster in 2021?
So Carson, first of all, I don't think any owner should decide that. I mean, that's not at all. Carson, to me, and to, I think, virtually everybody in our organization, is a quarterback that his first 4 years was in many ways elite and comparable to some of the great quarterbacks' first 4 years in the league. 5th year, obviously not satisfactory for whatever reasons. There are probably multiple reasons for that. So I think the way I look at it is we have an asset and we have a talent. He's a great guy. He wants nothing but to win big and win Lombardi trophies for Philadelphia. This guy is tireless. He has heart in the right place. He's really dedicated off season, on season. He's just what you want. And it behooves us as a team with a new coach, new coaching staff, to be able to really get him back to that elite progression where he was capable of, and at the same time, understand that there have been many quarterbacks in their fourth and fifth year. If you trace this, you can come up with many, many quarterbacks that have, a single year where it's just, whoa, the touchdown to interception ratio is not what you want. And we're talking some great ones like Peyton and Ben and guys like that. So I take a sort of a more, probably a longer view of this was not the best season for our offense. It was a poor season. And we also had a poor season from Carson in terms of what he's been able to show in the past. Very fixable. And I fully expect him to realize his potential.
Jeff, and then Les Bowen.
Jeff, how do you view your role in the regression of the team, particularly this last season? And do you feel like you've gotten too involved in football decisions?
I would say my involvement's been the same for about 25 years. I think that what I tend to do is to ask a lot of questions and to understand where we're coming from strategically and performance-wise. And it's stood us in a good way because it's allowed me to transition when we've needed to, make coaching decisions that have worked out, at least often in the short run or long run, and allowed us to be able to have a finger on the pulse of what could take place. When we have a bad season, I look at myself as much as I look at anybody else. But I think we have a great infrastructure. I think we've got good people all throughout the building. And it's the same, a lot of the same people that built the championship team. And, I think our track record of in the last 20 years, how many NFC East titles, playoff appearances, and appearances in the NFC Championship game, those are some of the metrics I look at. And I'll compare our record with almost anybody. So I think the involvement's good. You never want to be too involved. You never want to micromanage. And I'm very, very sensitive to that. You got to trust the people around you and first bring in the right people around you and then trust them.
Les, and then Mike Garofolo.
Hi, Jeffrey. I think we all understand the things that were done to win the Super Bowl and to try to be competitive in the next couple of years. But nonetheless, the draft picks you have had during that time and some of the free agent signings you have made during that time have not been very good. The drafts in particular, there have been some really notable failures. If you do have all these great people and personnel, and if Howie really is doing such a great job, then why is that?
I think you really got to look at the big picture of, have you analyzed every single draft pick and street free agent and everybody? Have you compared it to other teams? Have you ever compared it to every other, other successful teams? And do they have 2-3 year drop-offs with less volume? Are the picks that you're talking about seen in the long run or just in a one year period? There's a lot to look at there. I'm not disagreeing with anything. I'm just saying you got to really look at it. Seattle, you take whichever organization you want and look at it over a multi-year period. You're going to see highs and lows of drafting. You're going to see highs and lows of free agent acquisition, and you're going to have to make your own determination of, do they have the right people in the building? Is that 2 years of not having good first round picks? Is that related to the people in the building? Or is that because the two players that they actually were going to draft got taken just before and they're all pro players in the league? You got to be much more, I have to be much more in depth and complex about the analysis. Luckily for me, I sit there and I get to see exactly what took place and takes place. And, maybe someday I'll write a book about it, but you can't really talk publicly about what could have been and all that. There were mistakes made and they have to be improved, corrected. And, I expect us to have that success. We've certainly had the success on the field. It has to be in every aspect of the organization. I'm not somebody who's very satisfied. My personality is, even when we're winning, we can do a lot better. My message to Jim Schwartz after we won the Super Bowl was, wow, that was not a good defensive performance. So it's like in that game, it was great against the Vikes and the Falcons. But again, my personality is I want to win badly. I want to win more Lombardis for Philadelphia and our fans. We got the greatest fans around, and I will do everything possible. And if it means making any change necessary, I will.
Thank you.
Mike, and then Howard Eskin.
Jeffrey, did week 17 in the Washington game factor into this at all? And did you have any input on how the quarterback situation was handled? How do you think it was handled?
No, it had nothing to do with it whatsoever. I heard that Doug wanted to give Nate some time. Nate Sudfeld, and I understand the circumstances, but Nate, I think he holds the record for his debut in the NFL against Dallas for the best completion percentage. He was awesome. What was it? 19 out of 22, unstoppable. He was our backup in the Super Bowl because we had so much confidence in Nate. We talked about we're gonna advance far here, we hope, and who's going to be there if Nick gets injured. And we had a lot of confidence in Nate. He's at practice. I'm at practice a lot. Our coaches know much more than I do. Throws the best long ball on the roster, and I think what happened was he, if you remember, broke his wrist in the preseason a year ago. Our plan was to give Nate a lot of playing time in that preseason. The whole idea was to establish, is Nate our long-term backup? Is he a potential starter in the league? How good is Nate? Because he's good. He's awfully good at practice. And then we tendered him a second-round exclusive rights designation worth millions of dollars. And therefore, it just showed where we thought he was, both as a quarterback and as a teammate. And so what happened this year, the preseason got wiped out. So there was no chance to use him this year either. So Doug had said, we're going to use as many young players as we could. Jalen, had the injury in the Dallas game in the second quarter. He, of course, wants to play, but, significant hamstring. And I think Doug just wanted to give Nate a chance. He deserved it. He's been part of our Super Bowl winning team. He contributed to the scout team. He contributed so much. And I think it was just with good intentions. The circumstances weren't the best. Maybe the communication wasn't the best, but we would have loved to have eliminated the Redskins, or Washington, I should say.
Go ahead, Howard,
Jeff,
and then Ruben Frank.
Jeffrey, going back to early in this Zoom conference, you talked about the difference in vision, but I don't know that I really heard a specific reason of the differences in the vision between you and Doug Pederson. And was that difference in vision? And I don't think you really addressed, and I think Paul asked the question about coaches. What were the differences in vision, which I didn't really hear, and were there differences in vision with the coaches?
So Howard, I'd really rather not publicly talk about the details, but I think it's fair to say that I saw this as a retooling of the team in a way in which I thought we needed to make a lot of midterm, long-term decisions. And that also had to do with coaches. How would we best set ourselves up for success 2-3 years down the road? And, I'd rather not publicly talk about any specific coaches or anything like that, except to say that we, probably saw things a little differently, but it was much more about what I was trying to get across is it's much more about where we are as a franchise heading into a retooling and a real transition period versus trying to support a coach, trying to attract potentially other coaches, a defensive coordinator, or retain people on the staff in that role, knowing that you might not have the success that you want in that transition right away. And therefore, You don't want to put Doug in that position. And therefore I thought it was best for him and best for us, that we part ways, but it's just sort of the root of where we're at the moment.
Ruben and then Shil Kapadia.
Hi, Jeff. Following up on that, though, doesn't every NFL team or every sports team constantly weigh, the short term and the long term? Isn't that kind of a part of what every team is trying to do? Let's try to win for the long term, but we also have to win now. And why was that gap not, surmountable? Why couldn't you, find common ground there?
Right. I thought you were asking a different question. Like, why did we? I would say we changed our balance as a franchise between short, mid, and long term. The way we've created the success and been able to, have the success we've had has been thinking mainly in the midterm and long term and making unpopular short-term decisions at times. And we got away from that, understandably, because when you've competed to win a Super Bowl and you want to retain emotionally and physically the people that helped bring us all there. And if you remember, there were a lot of people injured that year, and we very much wanted to bring them all back to be able to participate the following year in trying to win another one. And so if you look at the final, I do this because I like to study this stuff. It informs me. If you look at the final four teams from the year we won the Super Bowl, they're all going through the exact same thing. If you look at Atlanta the year before, and you can call them they weren't in the final four, but they were in the final two the year before. And then we played them obviously in our Super Bowl year. It's where they are. If you look at the history of the final groupings, unless you have a Hall of Fame quarterback that can sustain it, teams tend to go for patching up. They tend to change their balance. It's not what made us successful. And I don't regret it because I really was hoping we could pull off another one. And I owed it to the players that brought us one to be able to lean in that direction. So while your question is a good one, we haven't had that balance. We've much more erred towards giving up a draft pick for an immediate infusion at a position, or drafting for a specific position because we thought it was our biggest weakness, or a trait that we thought was our biggest weakness. I don't regret any of that, but I know where we're at. And I think that Doug also knows where we're at, but I think in his natural coaching instinct, it's to literally do everything possible to maximize 2021 so that we're not in this position of questioning his job going forward. And so that's probably as simply as I can say it.
Shil and then Mike K.
Hey, Jeffrey, when you look at sort of the way the league is trending, what you mentioned with offense, and then kind of combining that with where the roster is and retooling a period of transition, what qualities are you looking for in the next head coach here as you begin the hiring search? And also who will be working with you to kind of lead that search?
So I think multiple people will be working with me to lead the search. I'll be leading the search. I always do. We'll have for sure Don Smolensky, Howie, keep personnel people involved in this. It'll be a multiple people involved in it, but and we have relationships with different people to get information about any candidate that we probably want to look into. So it's a multi-pronged process. In terms of the characteristics, I'd rather not specify, but I can tell you that no matter who we have, it needs to be a leader of coaches, a leader of players, and someone who represents the organization in a great leadership way. And we had a lot of that with Doug. So it's going to be leadership is an important characteristic. You brought up offense. I think there's a couple ways to skin that cat. You can hire, somebody really steeped in offense, or you've seen great offenses coached by head coaches that are coming from the defensive side. So I don't think there's any predilection for one over the other, but I do think somebody that is constantly curious of where the league is headed and what you need to do to have really good units. And again, without a really good elite offense, I tend to err on that side, but not that side of the ball for head coach. Doesn't matter.
Mike, and then Rob Motti.
Jeffrey, it's been a while since you've had a minority in the head coaching position or a coordinator position. How will that factor into your search? And also, will you consider anybody currently on the staff for the position?
Yeah, really good questions. So yes, I think that we are very open, and it's top of mind to make sure we have some of the best minority candidates in on the search. It's very important, I think, for us, for the league, and it's top of mind. I would expect Deuce Staley to be a candidate. He's a great representative of the Eagles and knows our values, and I would expect him to be part of the search as well. But great question, because I've never hesitated in this area. Obviously, I've hired an African-American as a head coach, and proud of it, and because he was the right man for the job at the time. And there's plenty of possible candidates in this area.
Rob, and then Bo Wolf.
Jeffrey, Eagles fans are very passionate. You know that. The overwhelming feeling, the overwhelming sentiment among fans is that the biggest problem with this team has been talent evaluation. Now, based on some of your responses when we've asked about Howie, it seems you don't agree with that. But when you look at the draft record, it's been poor. When you look at one Pro Bowl player drafted in the last 7 years, how do you feel about that aspect of it? Because it's not that difficult to make a Pro Bowl. And how do you justify not making changes in terms of talent evaluation? Or are you considering making changes and maybe giving someone like John Dorsey more say, or someone else in the building more say when it comes to the draft?
So I think the best way to look at it is you got to look at every aspect of drafting and talent acquisition. And if you're making short-term decisions, or you have a veteran team, or you're specifically focusing on one position or things like that, or a lower volume of picks, there's no reason to not look forward and having excellent success in this area. We've over the last 10, 15 years had a lot of success winning divisions, being in NFC championship games. I think one fourth of the time I've been owner in the last 20 years, we've appeared in an NFC championship game. That's hard to do without really good talent. And so I would say that, yeah, we can do better in every single aspect. And I'm as critical as any fan, trust me, as critical as any fan, and look at it in a very complex way. And it's a data-driven way. It's looking at what could have been, what should have been. And but I will match our performance against most any organization, and know that it's because of really good talent on the roster. So there's other ways of looking at it, but when you have a veteran roster, you're going to have many fewer starters coming from the draft and elsewhere. But listen, your words are not unheard. They're heard by me, and I feel like we've got an excellent football operations area, and I would look forward to us having real success as we retool through talent acquisition and through coaching.
And the second part of that, as far as John Dorsey or someone else, would you consider that, or is that something that's not in the equation right now?
No, I think that, listen, all the people we have, whether it's Andy Weidel, John Dorsey, Brandon Brown, all those guys, very, very capable guys. Jeremiah Washburn, these are all very, very capable people. So the more, I think they'll be very included. It's a very collaborative process. And, that I'm very pleased we have excellent people in that operation.
We'll wrap it up here with Bo.
Hey, Jeffrey, how much work were you able to do on potential candidates over the past week or so as you were weighing this Doug decision, and then comparing, this opening to the other openings on the market, where they might have a better quarterback situation or more cap space or more young talent, or right or wrong, less of a perceived clash with the front office potentially? What is the selling point for this job as compared to the others?
Yeah, great question. First of all, I think it would be a very, very attractive job, because if I'm a coach, the first thing I want to know is you're going to have as much resources as possible to create a successful team. Are the facilities good? What's the organization's track record over the last 10, 20 years? Are they a team that rarely makes the playoffs? Are they a team that's satisfied just to occasionally make the playoffs? How many division titles do they have? Do they ever get as far in the playoffs the way they build their roster? Or is it just one and done? Or do they get to championship games and Super Bowls and things like that? That's what I'm looking for. Cap room is a one-year phenomenon in this league. Anybody who really understands the cap knows that you can transition away from a difficult cap situation in about 12 months. And so anyone who has that short-term thinking in terms of cap utilization probably wouldn't be the right coach for that. On the quarterback situation, we've got two really interesting assets. So they're both young, they're both hungry, they're terrific people, very different and terrific people. A coach is going to have options. A coach is going to have an ability to fix what he feels is necessary in our offense, and have a potential star in Carson and a potential star in Jalen. And that gives us an asset also, so that if we end up deciding on one someday, the other is a really good asset. So the best fan base in America, there's other great fan bases, but this community really, really cares about their team, the culture of the team and how competitive they are. And they want to win divisions. They want to win and get to championship games and further. So I just can't. Is the owner committed? Is the culture positive? Are there good people all over the franchise in terms of operations, business-wise? It's all very, very, very positive. So I don't look at the opportunity on a short-term basis like, oh, is that quarterback better than that quarterback? Or do they have more cap room than that team? Or things like that. To me, that is a very, very false way of looking at opportunity in this league. And if I were advising a coach, I would say, you want to win, and you want to win big, and you want to have a fan base that's there for you no matter what. Philly is the best possible place. It's the best to own a team, and it's the best to coach a team. And yeah, tough at times. I love that. I absolutely love that. And there's a lot of places in America in the NFL where it's very different. And they haven't had the win. They haven't had the performance of their organization. They haven't necessarily had the full commitment and the resources that are almost unlimited in terms of what we devote to football. So I look forward to having that conversation. We've always had it. We've never had a problem attracting anybody, and I think we've got a lot of really great positives. As does Philadelphia as a city. Love the city. I think it's just one of the real underrated cities in America, and you can't underrate that. That's just it's you devote your life to football. You're in the place you're in, and Philly is a great place to be, to coach, to live, to have great schools, great hospitals. So it's kind of a win-win-win-win.
And how much were you surveying the scene of potential candidates over the past week as you evaluated Doug?
Right. So I think we always do that. I know I always do that. I'm kind of always watching every game and see what I can learn about whether it's offensive schemes, defensive schemes, coaches, people think outside the box. You're always kind of looking. We've always, basically do ongoing research no matter what. When we were winning the Super Bowl, you do ongoing research on, because you may lose people. So we didn't know we were going to lose Frank Reich, but suddenly happened when Josh turned that job down and set off a whole, so you have to be aware. You have to always have your plan ahead that you can go forward with. So there's a lot of good candidates out there. We'll think both inside the box, outside the box. I just want to say there'll be no rush here. This notion of an NFL team making a very important decision for itself and its fan base and rushing to a decision is unlike any in business. And I just don't think that's warranted. If we find a head coach soon or it's early February, it's totally great. If we're the last team picking a head coach, that's great too, because then you have all the opportunity in the world. There's no rush. There's no pressure. There's nothing that should drive you from a decision based on just rational thought and careful analysis and getting to know the person as best you can.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.